Very excited to host you guys for a conversation. Test, you good?
Hello.
Okay, so the journey to brand building excellence really, I think, requires a combination of vision, creativity, super smart organizational design, and all of that being fit for today's challenges, which are, kind of constantly changing, right? I think it really truly requires a combination of art and science, which you two really represent here on behalf of General Mills, and specifically Häagen Dazs is what we're going to talk about today. So would love for each of you to briefly introduce yourselves.
Sure. Hello. Good afternoon. I'm going to do the science part. I'll leave Arjoon the artistic part of the brand sharing. So I'm Manuel. I have been 15 years in General Mills, the last couple of years living here in London. For the first time ever leading a global team. I have always worked in the region, so I have had the chance to work and live in different places with the company. In Latin America, I have worked for China, and very recently, the last 2 years here. So as you will hear the conversation, you will hear a little bit of the tensions probably in building a brand globally on local teams, center teams, because I have had the chance to be in both places, so more to come on that.
Hi, I'm Arjoon. I've been in General Mills for 8 years, and similarly to Manuel, I've also worked across local teams in the UK, regional teams in Europe, and more recently on an international sort of center of excellence team that works across and partners our global brand teams. I, as Manuel said, I'm probably tasked more on the art side of the brand building, partnering with those who run the business, and it's truly an interesting dance-off, as we like to say.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about where Häagen Dazs has been in terms of its brand and really kind of where it is today.
Yeah, so I would say Häagen Dazs, for you to know, it was created in New York in the 60s by a Polish immigrant that moved into the US. And since then, it has been updating to have this very relevant and iconic position in the market. So today, Häagen Dazs is the second largest brand in the ice cream category. Ice cream is huge in the snacking occasions that we have. And we are very proud to keep trying to have the brand relevant for the new consumers to come in the brand.
Yeah, and specifically on the brand building journey, I think often, those of you especially who've been here in the UK have a very strong memory of how disruptive Häagen Dazs was in terms of a brand that really broke category codes, that really stood out and created a really aspirational world of adult luxury ice cream. And some of the great work that's happened way back then has allowed us to really expand our footprints. And it continues to be the brand that drives desirability, that drives innovation, and truly as a marketer, it's a joy to work on a brand like that.
Is there like a North Star that you guys are thinking about as you're evolving in the next couple of years?
Yeah, North Star, you mean like a market, for example?
Or with the brand and kind of what you want to just reinforce?
Yeah, I would say my point of view on this, following Arjoon's comment, right? Because the UK, when you are here, you don't see the brand to its fullest potential, right? That you see it in some other places. So I would say there are very significant markets that exposes the brand into different levels, right? Like I would say Taiwan or China or Japan. So in Asia, we have been very good in positioning the brand in a more omni-channel experience. We have a shop ecosystem as well that allows us to interact with consumers, to gather data from consumers, to use it as a PR, to bring O2O occasions, to commercialize our products, of course, as well, and bring these experiences. So when you see all that internally as well, it's part of the comments, right? What we need to learn from here and to some other places, what are the challenges in the UK or France that can be solved with something that we can learn in the Emirates or South Korea. And that's part of what we are looking for consistently in a global position.
Just with an artsy layer, and Manuel says this really well, I guess our North Star as a brand, specifically in Häagen Dazs, is to be the world's most desirable ice cream brand, right? And with that, so long as you're super consistent and singing from the same hymn sheet on our 4 Ps, we would be doing we would be on that journey to driving that desirability with our consumers, with our customers, and pretty much across all our touch points. So I'd say desirability is probably the number one sort of sought after metric over and above any other commercial executional impacts that we want to have.
And we track it, by the way, right? We need to make sure how we are evolving in these KPIs. So brand desire, we track it every year. We interact with consumers to see how the brand is evolving. And what we are seeing as well is different scale wherever we are, right? And these examples that I mentioned, the brand is number one, is the most desired brand in ice cream and many other snacks categories, right? The competitors, where in some other places we still need challenges to take it to the place that we need, right? This different competition set, retail organization. So that's part of the challenges that we are living every day.
And so how has the marketing organization evolved kind of globally and locally to adapt to these changes and to where you guys are going?
So I would say we probably are organized very similar to other CPGs, right? We benchmark other CPGs, how they are organized, and majority of these large food organizations have central teams and market teams. So we decided 2 years ago probably to change a little bit the roles and be very clear who needs to run what and what is the way that we work as we need today. So the way that we are organized today, the global team, that is the one that I'm leading, leads the global communication, global portfolio, global product, partnerships. And I would say, and we always talk with the team, we focalize in the similarities of consumers. That I may say is 80% of what we see around the world, right? Consumers are very similar alike. Whenever we test a new campaign, we test it in Hong Kong, in Seoul, in Paris, and results are quite even. When we launch a new product, results are quite even. So what we have seen is consumers expect probably similar things from our global brand, right? In the way that we message them, in the way that we launch products, in the way that we renovate the portfolio that we have. So that's the role of the global team. And then we have the market teams. And the market teams, I would say, fills the other 20% of the small differences that can be in some countries, either in taste profile, or in consumer expectation, or in media devices, or in media investment. And they run the P&L. So we have decided as an organization that they run the P&L. So the markets are the one that invest, are the one that commercialize the product, are the one that negotiates with the customers, are the one that runs the markets, right? So that's the way that we have organized with the benchmarks that we have in place. And I would say it's working somehow, but it is challenging as well, right? And there's different opinions, there's different stakeholders, and probably we'll talk more, I'll pause there. But that's part of Arjoon says, of the dance, of where to put the power in the center, in the markets, how to balance it, and depending on the challenges that we are living, we keep customizing and adjusting to the times being. So
I'll just layer something to what Manuel was saying. And over and above our sort of global, local playbooks, there's also how marketing as a capability has become even more specialized. So within that, we have clarity and a clear distinction between brand management, which is essentially teams that run the brand strategy, the P&L, they run the business. And then there's brand experience, which in another guise or world would have been called integrated marketing communications, that covers every touch point and that covers, let's just say, the creative side all the way down to the executional activation touch point. And in a sense, we're building capabilities across both that allows us to be really specialists in really being business-minded, but also balancing the art and the science. So I probably represent the art side of that business, which is, how, for example, therefore, within our organizational design, are we therefore delivering against our 3 organizational priorities, which is how are we boldly building our brands, how are we relentlessly innovating, and finally, as a global org that's organized accordingly, how are we unleashing our scale? And that's probably the biggest thing that I think we're aiming to address with a brand like Häagen Dazs that is truly present in 90 countries.
And I would say, given our scale, just following on this line, BX and brand development is in the center. We have that division, and we train our teams and we develop our teams to do those jobs. In the markets, we don't have that division because the market plays as well a role of leading the teams, right? Leading the commercial organization, the supply chain organization. So they need probably more leading skills and more trade and commercialization skills that the center needs, that specializes more in the brand building art.
So what are some examples of how like the global strategy then is scaled out to the local markets, and how is that 20% kind of uniqueness showing up? I'd love to hear about an example.
Sure. Given the fact that this is a largely newish design from Tears Out, I'll probably talk to one example. So our biggest innovation in 2022, and by far our biggest innovation for the last 10 years in Häagen-Dazs, was our macaron ice cream range. For those of you who'd seen it, it was a collaboration with one of the most iconic pastry chefs in the world, Pierre Hermé. So Häagen-Dazs and Pierre Hermé launched what we called a newer era of indulgence with our macaron collection. So that said, while we had a fantastic above-the-line playbook ready that could be deployed as is, working with the whole matrix of brand experience, brand management, and our local, what we call market action teams, we created our first ever amplification strategy, which we called Summer of Amour, which was a red thread which said, how, for example, do you bring the experience of Paris in a pint, the fête of fêtes across summer, and really bring alive the spirit of Paris through the lens of amour or love. Now that could flex in many different ways, but the consistent thread, for example, had to be amour, i.e. love, starting and building that sort of playbook and giving our markets sort of a local spin. So in France, for example, it was a love bus where, a bus was circulating all around France where you could come in and, have your portrait of love, which could then be displayed in a gallery in Paris, or whether it was, discovering the cities of love or recipes of love in London, or a viral love song called Je t'aime macaron in Korea, and taking it all the way down to a customized love pint. So identifying that love thread, or identifying a red thread as a BX team in conjunction and in buy-in with some of our local market action teams, and then empowering them to run with it, to run the media, but bring it all home together, potentially proved to be one of our most successful sort of global orchestration and amplification campaigns in recent times. But that said, we're on a bit of a journey here, and it's far from perfect. But because it's a bit of a task when you need to orchestrate across Europe, Asia, Latam. But as Manuel said, we really try and focus on the similarities, saying, hey, 80% of our consumers are similar, and the way their emotions towards our brand and towards Häagen-Dazs ice cream in general doesn't necessarily change too much.
Yeah, and I would add on that, for example, we have capabilities to produce some products in some kitchens that we have in China, for example. So the team came with us. Hey, I can produce cakes. We sell cakes, ice cream cakes, given this unique density that we have. They say, we can do a macaron cake, right? Yeah, but as long as it fits the product toolkit, the guidelines that we have, it has to be Parisian style, right? It needs to breathe Frenchiness, that it is what we are communicating. So the teams have that liberty as well to use whatever tools they have in place as long as fits here. South Korea example is a very good one as well. They are very much into this cake pop culture, and they're always coming with their TikToks, whatever. They create this new dance, French style, and they have all these visitors interacting with the brand, which was very locally driven, following the center toolkit. So it's a great way of having a common integration of the message that you want to send to your consumers, but with the freedom as well to customize as you need in the markets. And of course, we have many other examples that were rejected as well, right? Because while you are doing this, there are some things that are off what we are trying to offer, and it's very difficult to place a border, right? What gets in, what doesn't get in, because everyone tries to justify whatever they feel is the best for their markets, and it is part of the challenges, I would say, and the opportunities of working in these matricial organizations.
So Häagen-Dazs, I think, is among a relatively small handful of global organizations that is so iconic. It's like it shows up in pretty much every major global capital you go to. There's a presence, there's a consistency. It's iconic. what are some of the interesting challenges that go into managing an iconic brand as you're bringing it into the future?
I'd say, here's the thing. I think, the biggest thing I think we have to learn to say in a brand, and an iconic brand, even if we say so ourselves, or at least our consumers tell us the same, is the power to say no, right? Because and to really, really strive for consistency with a certain amount of flexibility. So I'd say that's the first thing that I'd say, Manuel and some of the team at our central teams, being able to create those very specific frameworks. I'll specifically speak to one of our endeavors, which is, we know consumers across the world, again, focusing on the similarities, have, the passion points may differ, and the passion points may be far and wide. Like, a consumer or a lover of Häagen-Dazs loves music, art, entertainment, sport, movies. It can stretch far and wide. So the interpretation for activation can be far and wide. That doesn't allow for that degree of consistency. So one of the challenges we're working on is to create a cultural framework that gives a certain definition that focuses on moments that matter, because eventually that's what we as a brand sort of aspire to own. And then within a local framework, once they have clarity of what they can do, they can then lean into that aspect of culture. So there's no tension, because otherwise, as a global team, it's very hard for us to provide that degree of direction without kind of stepping into the local team's shoes and doing their jobs, right?
Agree, and I would say as part of probably some background in category. Category is large and is growing very fast. And post-COVID, consumers are leaning more into snacking occasions. So what we are seeing is indulgence, the role of indulgence is changing from a forbidden pleasure into a more everyday need. So consumers are leaning more into that. The well-being, for example, mindset is becoming more holistic, right? In the past, may have come like cutting the sugar, cutting the salt, cutting whatever. And now it's more about sleeping well. It's about giving myself relaxation moment. It's about watching a show in Netflix with my couple, having this, whatever that we crave for. So we are seeing that. And products as well, the evolution of food is more anytime, anywhere. So access to snacks is more and more. So what we are seeing is categories booming. And everyone wants a slice of category, right? So in order to go fast, we say, and for me this is very important, and we talk as teams, in order to go fast, you need to prioritize, you need to simplify, and you need to delegate. So we are being very choiceful in what we want to do and we don't want to do. So we can put all the resources in place, right? We need to simplify the organization. Who makes the call? How do we choose what to do, not to do? Which countries have a larger voice in the conversation? Because when you are serving 80 countries, it's impossible to manage the amount of ideas. So we have tiered the countries as well. So we have the large representation of consumers in the table, and some others need to adapt to what we have. And then we need to delegate, and that's the importance of the framework that Arjoon is mentioning, right? So if there's very clear framework, now we free the markets, freedom within the framework, and they can go and do their own stuff. So we need to be very, very good in defining properly those frameworks that allows the team to go fast and use the tools we have. So that has been part of the, I would say, the challenges and the opportunities that we are seeing in the category.
One thing we talked a little about in the prep was just like the role of kind of global muses. You've had some of those in the past, or kind of what would have been maybe would be creators now, celebrities in the past, and just like, people to sort of represent your brand in a way. I'm curious about how you guys are thinking about that in the next couple of years.
I'll address that in a slightly different way. I think when you have a brand like Häagen-Dazs, it's we're constantly learning about many super fans, and at a first instance, it gives us a ton of inspiration. As a brand, we haven't necessarily been one that's really worked with big celebrity faces, and our approach to advocacy or driving brand love through the lens of creators or influencers has largely been localized, or largely been amplified through the lens of cultural or passion point-led partnerships. As we lean into where we're hoping to go next, and on the journey that we're building with Manuel and his team, the role of muses really serves through the lens of what we call our consumer set. We call them refined indulgers, and the closer we get to them by what we call consumer intimacy, they would in a way chart the path that we want to tread on and really be micro-focused, laser-focused on the moments that matter to them and how we show up and where they show up and how we show up there typically is kind of the route we're going down without necessarily taking on a bit more of a lofty macro celebrity ambassador route. We'll continue to have those, and certainly in markets like Asia, where we have mega super fans, we certainly work with them on specific product launches. So we do understand that celebrity fans drive a lot of our media. So being very cognizant of that, that's certainly something that we empower the market teams to work with, so long as it's living within our framework. Would you tend to agree, Manuel?
I agree, fully agree.
So what are some of the skills that you think are most important for helping to run an iconic brand like Häagen Dazs, and just in general, kind of the combination of marketing, strategy, creative, vision? Curious what you're hiring for and what you're thinking about with your talent.
Yeah, so I would say very General Mills basics for marketeers, right? So I always say, if you're a marketeer at General Mills, you need to build a brand, lead a team, and run a business, right? So those are the summarization of the skills that you need, right? Build a brand, all the marketing tools, consumer intimacy, consumer insights, analytics, etc., that you need to build the brand into the future, right? And to be relevant for our consumers as you keep evolving the brand further. Then lead a team. The role of marketing is not only to build the brand, is to lead the resources of the organization into the ultimate goal that it is the purpose as a brand that you are serving to our consumers. So it's very important on how you are interacting internally, how you are interacting with your agencies, with your knowledge centers, so you can get the best out of the team, right? So there's a lot of leading the team. And finally, running a business, right? It needs to make financial sense, what we are doing for the business and for the financial objectives of the company. So we need to be savvy financially of what we are trying to achieve. So I would say, depending on the role of you are, probably you have to stretch more one than the other, you learn more one than the other, and that's part of the importance as well of rotating and being in different areas and being in different places in the company, so you can build a more cohesive skill set.
Totally. I agree. I think, and specifically again, within marketing, I think we're being cognizant of identifying some more specialized skill sets for if you're on the brand management side, which is running the business. And then as you lean into the brand experience side, this is one where not only do you need the consumer intimacy, but you really need a real strong understanding of touch points. You need a strong understanding of, cultural trends, and then really being, at the bleeding edge of culture and the bleeding edge of technology to bring those in and being a bit of a champion for creativity as a superpower within your organization.
And I think I will add something as you were talking, Arjoon. I'm thinking in a scale también. Oh, sorry, as well. So the scale matters as well. Because, for example, we have a huge business in the US. So that allows for more specialization, that allows for more deeper understanding on things. So you have more specialist position. In international, we don't have that scale. So depending when you are, if you are in a large country, you may have some more specific roles, even a VX role, for example, or consumer insights, where in some other places, you clusterize because you don't get the scale. And you may have 6 or 7 markets being run by a team, right, or doing marketing centrally. So these kind of things, scale is important as well, because you need to make sure that you are maximizing the resources to run the business, as I was mentioning as well, right?
Great. Okay. Well, I think last question here. In terms of the future, what are you most optimistic about, and what is kind of keeping you up at night in a bad way, if anything?
I think one of the things I think we are acutely aware of is, the wave, or what we'll say is marketing is at the cusp of probably its greatest ever disruption. And, almost in a way being prepared without sort of diving headfirst is an approach that we are taking baby steps towards. And to that extent, I think we're excited about how we future-proof ourselves in that journey. So that is definitely an exciting time for us as marketers, so that standing still is not an option. So that means we have to move at a relentless pace without forgetting what we do best and what we stand for. So there could probably not be a more exciting and a more scary time to be a marketer and for our industry. So for that, I am truly very excited to be where I am now.
And I would add from my side, I think in this exciting category, we need to honor the legacy that people have built behind us, right? It has been more than 60 years that this brand came to life. It keeps winning in many places. It keeps building brand desire. We keep building market share in many places. So I'm excited about keep building this consumer intimacy, I would say, so to keep on the pace that we have had in the past. And as well, omnichannel execution, as well, the way of commercializing brands is changing significantly in a brand that it is experiential as ours. So making sure that we are intimate to our consumers and intimate or building the omnichannel execution of it.
Great. Thank you so much. It's a wonderful conversation.
That was fast.